France is home to the largest Western Muslim minority, yet has managed to become the laboratory for Islamophobia by inspiring other Western countries with debates on religious neutrality in public space, adopting discriminatory laws and justifying the social death sentence of Muslim women wearing headscarves who are excluded from schools, work and potentially from universities. With a deeply rooted yet ignored colonial past, French elites have been manufacturing the Muslims' problem for decades, with mainstream media confining the French Muslim community to the position of a foreign body within the nation, and a justice system that fails to meet Islamophobic attacks with proper sanctions. The French state has excluded and exploited Muslims for decades. The jihadist attacks in Paris and in Nice and Rouen in 2016 have sent it to the fever pitch. Of the 3,500 raids conducted since the start of that period, only 6 have led to investigations. In December 2016, authorities in Eure-et-Loir admitted that they were targeting Muslims on a purely preventive basis without any specific evidence against them. Children have watched as their parents are handcuffed or dragged from their beds by heavily armed police. In the first 3 months of the state of emergency declared after last year's Bataclan attack, 274 people were placed under house arrest. The vast majority of them were Muslims. Racial profiling is on the rampant. Mosques have also been violently ransacked by the police. Worshippers are humiliated and degraded, including through the use of police dogs. Political organizations with Muslim links have also been threatened with closure. Demonstrations, including pro-Palestinian ones, have been banned. The BDS movement, which stands for boycott, divestment and sanctions to end international support for Israel's suppression of Palestine, has been outlawed. Muslims appealing for asylum find themselves even more vulnerable than the residents. The government delivers anti-Islamic broadsides with destroying refugees camps in Calais and elsewhere. In pursuing these policies, French politicians have knowingly ignored the fact that long-standing and state-sponsored Islamophobia, combined with military activity in the Muslim countries, has also encouraged extremism. The political classes have refused to recognize how their economic and social policies fuel the alienation that drives people to join groups like ISIS. Islamophobia has become the very ground on which the organizational and ideological future of the French right is mostly directly played out. But when it comes to defending the rights of the France Muslims population, the left, including much of the radical left, has been missing in action. Reluctance to defend religious freedom seriously undermines the left's solidarity with Muslim refugees. As a result, Islamophobia strikes at the heart of one of the most urgent political projects for the European radicals. France's National Human Rights Commission recently released a report on the fight against racism in France. The Commission reported 429 anti-Muslim threats and attacks in 2016, a striking 223% increase from the previous year. Anti-Muslim incidents in France have seen a marked increase since the attacks at French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. These include attacks on mosques and Muslim businesses, arson, hate speech, racist graffiti, vandalism, discrimination, physical assault, threats with firearms, and murder of Muslims like Muhammad al-Mukili, who was stabbed to death in his own house. Attacks in Paris occurred in a very Islamophobic and racist context in France, said El Sarrai, spokesman for the Collective Against Islamophobia in France, an advocacy group which has recorded reports of over 66 anti-Muslim attacks. The number of anti-Muslim attacks has been increasing over the past few years because hate speech and stigmatizing discourse on Muslims have been a global trend, and the French government has done nothing to counter this problem, to counter discrimination and violence towards Muslims. An insidious claim that is circulating with increasing frequency is that Islamophobia is the new anti-Semitism. meant to convey the idea, presumably, that Islamophobia has taken over from anti-Semitism as Western civilization's most pernicious and intractable form of bigotry. Now, when French see an Arab, they think that person is a terrorist, and when they see a woman wearing the veil, people feel themselves attacked and they reject her. The increasingly anti-Muslim sentiment in France has also forced changes in behavior. Since the Charlie Hebdo attacks, the Islam mosque on the neighboring Bellefontaine housing estate in Toulouse has had to close between prayers time. Video cameras watch over the site. A recent Human Rights Watch report substantiated individual feelings. It accused France of using its state of emergency law brought in after the Paris attacks in November 2016 to carry out abusive and discriminatory raids and house arrests against Muslims. It was in the early 1980s that the French government began to blame Islam for nation's social distress. Amid a global recession and with the left-wing government implementing austerity, a strike movement took off in the car industry, in which approximately half of the employees were migrant workers from former French colonies. The socialist prime minister blamed the religion of the strikers. Soon, popular media such as Le Figaro were asking about French Muslims. Will we still be French in 30 years? In 1989 and 90, a series of schools began to target Muslim girls for wearing the hijab, supposedly a sign of their refusal to integrate, a controversy that gained momentum with the French state's intervention in the Algeria civil war against the Islamists. Later, with the war on terror in full swing, President Jacques Chirac proposed a veil law banning the wearing of all religious symbols in French schools. In 2011, the state passed a further law banning the right of Muslim women to wear any face covering in public. The result was to effectively place those Muslim women who prefer the niqab or burqa under house arrest. Today, most French people consider Islam to be incompatible with French values. Leading journalists such as Claude Imbert of the respected conservative magazine Le Point proudly claimed to be a Islamophobe. A recent cover of the magazine featuring an image of a Muslim woman wearing a niqab had the headline "Brazen Islam" in school cafeterias, hospitals, and in swimming pools. The culture of war against Muslims is a war with teeth. France is a country where around 70% of the prison's population is Muslim. It is a country in which there is a systematic racist brutality on part of the police. The French government has also made it extremely difficult for Muslims to protest. In 2012, when the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo published a series of Islamophobic cartoons, the government banned planned protest against the publication. In 2014, when activists sought to protest against Israeli attacks on Gaza, the government used exaggerated reports of anti-Semitism among Muslim protesters to impose bans.